I'm replacing the rubbers on this racket and this racket. I'll move these rubbers to this one. I'll get these. This is a Timo Boll ALC from Butterfly. Anatomic handle with Dignix 80. On the forehand, Dignix 64. On the backhand, we're putting Dignix 80 on both sides. This is the Omar Assar blade. It has an anatomic handle, and the Omar Assar blade is special because it has an oversized handle. It's large. You can feel the difference in your hand. I'm not sure it's so easy to see on camera, but it also makes the balance feel a little more to the middle, less from the head, so it's kind of nice. I'll move these rubbers to the Tibhar blade. And I'll put the Tenergy 19 and Tenergy 05 FX on this blade. And then from the Tibhar one, I already took one rubber off the other day, taking this one off. And I'll do something to this one just to demonstrate how to get glue out of a sponge, which is something I've been doing lately. So if you take it off, just get any of the glue off the blade. Alright, so first, what I'm going to do, in order to get this old glue out of this rubber, which I feel like doing because it has a little bit of build-up here, it's not so flat, and it's not there, so I'm going to put a lot of my glue, the Revolution 3, on this, let it dry, and then later on I'll try and peel it off to get rid of the glue. Either use a big thick layer or 2 or more layers, we'll see. So I use a lot of glue for this one because I'm not using this to glue it to a racket, I'm taking the glue out of the sponge. So I'm doing this first because I'm putting a lot of glue on it, so it might dry in time by the end of the video for me to try and peel off this glue, or it might not. I'll just make a video later or show it later, I'm not sure. So for this one, you just want to make sure that all the glue covers everything and kind of makes a really thick layer, because the thicker the glue layer, the easier it is to peel off later. And so if you do an extra layer or put more on, it makes it easier. Otherwise you're stuck trying to peel off a layer that's not really that thick. Alright, so I'm leaving that for now, but I'll smooth it out a little bit. Just remember, I'm not putting this on a racket right away, I'm taking this glue off, so don't think I'm being that sloppy. Alright, first we'll mess with the Timo Boll. We'll take the Dignix 80 off that. You can see it here, I got the side tape. These aren't my rackets, I'm helping a friend. So, I didn't assemble these rackets, so sometimes you never know what type of glue was used and different things like that, so sometimes you get some surprises, but it's good to practice dealing with it. So like I said, it's got Dignix 80 on it now and 64. They're not that old, but wants to replace them. Yeah, they're pretty stuck on here. So it's so stuck on here and I can feel the sponge breaking already. So I'm gonna try and peel it up a little bit at a time. I think these rubbers have been on here a long time. Or a weird glue was used maybe. Yeah. Trying to attack it from a few different angles because the sponge is already stuck to this blade so bad. There's always some troubleshooting when you start messing with lots of blades, especially at the same time. So, like I said, this will probably take a while. You can see it's coming up, but it's very brittle. I don't want to ruin it. Even if these blood rubbers aren't going to be reused, I don't think. And if anyone's ever watching and has suggestions or feedback, go for it. I'll probably stop talking to myself. It's interesting to see how different sponges react over time. So I'm gonna have to find out how long these were on here and what glue was used. Because these Dignix sponges are stuck on here completely. I haven't seen that before. Oh, it's starting to come up, but it's really brittle. It's interesting, the sponge is so dry. Didn't expect the rubber removal to take this long on the first one, but that's kind of the nature of it sometimes. You can see the sponge doesn't want to come off. Oh my gosh. That thing fought me every step of the way. That was pretty crazy. All right. So you can see here's the blade, Timo Boll ALC, Airlight Carbon. So it's an outer carbon blade, similar to Viscaria, Zhongjika ALC, Fanjindong ALC. Except this one was by Timo. All right, so that's off. Now I gotta do the other side. Let's take a look at the sponge real quick though, just to see. So, I mean, a few little problems here and there at the bottoms. If I was gonna reglue this to do a really good job, I might try to get the glue off, or I think with glue you could kind of just deal with it and it wouldn't cause any problems. All right, so you got that. There's some glue residue there. I'll kind of rub it all with my fingers to get it off. But yeah, see, the water-based glue typically comes up if you just rub it off the blade. You want to be a little careful not to do it, but it kind of flakes up, and then you'll reach a point where you get most of it and can't do much better, and then you just accept it and go on. All right, so here's the other side. Let's see what Sponge of 64 does. Man, yeah, it was good glue, that's for sure. At least for sticking it to it. It's crazy. It's pulling apart the sponge there. Glued too tight down there. All right. Well, these rubbers definitely aren't gonna be put on a main blade. They'll be fun, just for fun. So yeah, if you're watching, I'm gonna try to get these off, then I'll start getting some more glue on the other stuff, and then over time it'll start to take shape. You know, I'll probably just use one layer of glue on the blade and one layer of glue on the rubber each time to save a little time and not make the rackets too heavy. I'll show you the glue I'm using. I don't really love the glue, the GWO glue, but it's my friend's and it works well enough. I've used it when I've done other rackets, so it's fine. I like the Revolution 3 better, but last I checked it was out of stock, and I don't want to use it all if I can't get in more yet, because that's what I used to play with. All right, well, this one's annoying me just as much as the 80. So this sponge definitely is coming apart. I gotta attack it from a different angle. So you can see it's really brittle along this part, so I'm trying to avoid that. I'm just trying to get up as far as I can along the side to come apart here. Someone told me one time it's good to pull it side to side instead of up and down, because the vertical grain, if you pull up and down, you might pull out the veneer. I haven't had too many issues with that, but I have started trying to go side to side or diagonal. But if I try to pull this all at once, this sponge is gonna tear all apart. So I should have named the title of the stream, watch me try and get these sponges off this one blade for the rest of the night. Oh my goodness. Anyone watching, do you have like a favorite blade or rubber or anything like that? Do you like playing with, or any, I don't know, anything for us to talk about while I spend the next 10 minutes messing with this rubber? Even though it's not even going to be reused, so I'm not sure why I'm being so gentle. Just don't want to ruin it. Oh my gosh. I'm going to try to get through this middle part that's so stuck. I mean, I've never even really needed to do it, but I could use like a little knife or something. It's stuck so much. You see, it's literally coming apart. Oh my God. All right, well, this rubber's officially done, so we're gonna move along. This one was pretty worn out, I guess. Hopefully. You see this? I don't know what was used to glue this, but I've never had this much trouble getting it off a blade. That's why it's good to learn to glue your own stuff too, so you always know like what was used and what you need to do to get it off. And like some glues won't leave any residue, so you don't really have to worry about it. Other glues do, but you can get off the residue. And then some glues just are hard to use. You see this? It's crazy. This racket wanted to make me look bad in front of my audience. Look at this. What in the world happened to this thing? It's crazy. we will prevail. What happened to this rubber? Oops. Oh, I would laugh if it wasn't so sad. What happened to this thing? So yeah, now that I'm really peeling it off strong, I'm trying to go horizontal so that it doesn't peel up the veneer or the ply, because I don't know what glue was used here, but this thing is so glued on and so stuck, and it's dried out the sponge completely. But it's interesting because this is Dignix 64. And that Dignix 80 was stuff. I use Dignix 80, so I'm curious to see how some of my sponges will be in the future when I take them off. It works well. Oh. What did you do for the first 20 minutes of your first live stream? Well, If you're just joining me, I've been spending the better part of 20 minutes trying to get these pieces of rubber off this blade, which I didn't assemble myself, so I'm not sure what type of glue was used. But they've been on there a while, and I'm almost done, so bear with me. On this side, I put some glue on an old sponge that had glue stuck in it already, so I'm going to do one more layer of fresh glue there, and then eventually peel that all up to get the glue out of the sponge and make it good as new, hopefully. This rubber was always a goner. I'm actually quite proud of how well I did with this one actually now, because considering how this one has turned out, I did okay. If you're watching and you're like, you should talk more, you should talk less. One for more, one and a half for less in the chat. We're almost there. I'm just trying not to peel off any wood at this point. There's no reason to rush it and get careless. Oh my gosh. Got me a mess of my assembly station that I cleaned up, so that's something else I'm going to have to deal with. Oh my goodness, oh my goodness. Okay, look at us. Ooh, it's hot. Not me. Set this aside for the time being. And I gotta clean this up. But if you look over here, this is pretty dry now, and I don't even need to let it dry like 1000% because I'm not putting it on a racket like I said before. I'm just trying to make a really thick glue layer, so when I peel it off, it'll peel off the other glue too. To do that, I could stop here, or I might do one more after. I'm not sure. You want like one thick, continuous layer of glue when you do this, all the way to the edges to make it easier. And it's still gonna take you a while if you're really gonna commit the time. But if you ever want to like reuse some rubbers, and they're still pretty good, but they're kind of got caked up glue in them, or you really want to clean the sponge all the way like new, so you could, I don't know, boost an old rubber or something. Do that. Try and build it up around the edges too to make it easier to pick up later. Alright. I'm gonna try and get rid of all this stuff. What a mess. People are probably watching this saying, man, this guy has no idea what he's doing, he ruined that rubber. Why would I watch him assemble a racket? And I'd say, yeah, you got a point. Why would you watch me assemble a racket? That's the question. Maybe you want to learn. Is that everything? Be right back. All right, now we can move forward. So, in summary, this is one of the rubbers I took off that, the Dignix 80. I actually saved that pretty well, so I'll be able to reuse that at some point. I'll put that to the side for now. We're going to be putting the Dignix 80 both sides of this Timo Boll, so now I got to make sure I get at least most of the glue residue off the blade, but that won't be long. So that side is actually quite good. Not much there. This side's got a little bit on it, but I've done my best here. As long as it's not sticking up too much and the edges matter a little less anyway, there's always going to be a little bit of buildup and stuff there. So that's pretty flat too. Flat enough. Alright. That's typically the forehand side of a blade. It has more of the markings, the serial number, all that. And that would be the backhand. The gem on the backhand as well. So it's a butterfly Timo Boll ALC. Oh, I still have to get the rubbers off this one, I guess. Oh, no. Actually, I'll start doing some assembly because that's why I'm supposed to be here. Not just removing rubbers. Alright. Here. This is Dignix 80 black 2.1. I use Dignix 80 on my backhand actually, but it's 1.9 really. I like Dignix 80 overall. It's like good for blocking and countering. It's a little more of like a flat contact rubber as opposed to Dignix 05, which in my opinion is more like a spinning forward rubber over the top. But as I develop my backhand more, maybe I'll go to 05. Here's what it looks like. It's got good grip to it. I think Dignix 05 has slightly more grip and it grabs the ball a little more, but this has a little more speed at a given thickness, supposedly. It makes sense, I guess. Gotta try and brush some of this stuff off. Made a mess with that last ball. Alright. Here we are. All that stuff. Still getting used to having this tripod in my way, so I'm gonna maneuver a little bit. Alright, so I'm going to do the first layer of glue on the rubber and then on the blade. This one I'm only going to use, I'm just going to use one layer. I'm actually going to use my glue. I don't feel like using the G-World glue. I don't feel like dealing with it after all that. I'd rather just use it. This is the Revolution 3 glue. It's normal viscosity. It's pretty easy to use, I think. You don't need to put a ton on, but you can put as much as you feel like. My sponge is already kind of soaked. That's enough. It's probably more than, I mean, it's even more than enough, but for one coat, I'm okay with it. I first try to get it spread out evenly for the most part, cover most of the sponge, and then later on you can worry about making sure the lines and everything are more even. You usually go each way like once or twice, depending on how much. The more you put on, the more you have to kind of move it all around to deal with it. But the reason I like the Revolution 3 glue is because the way I described it, like, it won't go bad on you if you have to do a little more glue a few minutes later or pull something off. It doesn't like turn all stringy and bad like some glues. And then also once it dries, you can peel it off kind of easily. It's not so bad. This is pretty even. I'm trying to even out just a little more. Water-based glue, table tennis glue doesn't really make a big problem on anything, so you can just wipe it off later. I could have stopped a while ago, but I felt like maybe a little more. I'll continue a little more. That's pretty good. I can fix this, I guess. Problem is, once your sponge gets really saturated, then you start to make some mistakes. So I'm gonna use some of this glue on the blade. I could put a little more on the blade, or I can use this. There was enough kind of already soaked up in my sponge and on here to use that it was enough. And so table tennis glue, when it goes on, you see it as white. Depending on how much you put on, it'll be clear or not. But then as it dries, it goes clear. Most of them go clear. So you kind of, you watch it, and then you know when, once it's dry and clear, then you can attach them to each other, the blade. Sometimes you can put a little extra on the edges if you want. Or you can do 2 layers or more on the rubber. You don't really need to do more than 1 on the blade, because each time you put on the blade, a little bit seeps in. So if your blade's sealed, that's not a big deal, but if it's not, then each time it picks up a little more water. Alright, so I gotta let that dry. That'll be like 15 minutes. You'll see it turn clear. This one's obviously all spotted up and stuff, because I'm trying to build up a thick glue layer there. And then once it gets thick, eventually you can peel it up and it'll look like a brand new sponge again. That's the idea. So yeah, since I'm doing this just 1 layer, once those dry, I'll put them on, and then I'll start with that next one, and I'll mess with this in the meantime. And if you're watching and have any questions, you can always type and I can look over. So this is the Omar Assar blade I was talking about. It actually has an oversized handle, so it fits in your hand bigger. It's an interesting blade. There's not so many blades out there that are known for having a bigger handle, like, so if you have a preference for big handles, then you have to look for them. So this is one of them, the Omar Assar blade from Butterfly. There's also a Nittaku acoustic carbon with large handle, and there are a couple like Xiom ice cream blades. The handles are supposedly larger, but I haven't used any of those. Only this one. This is the first time I felt it, and actually, yeah, you can feel the difference in your hand. It's more balanced throughout, and it feels really solid. It's like, I don't know, it feels bigger than a normal racket for sure. Alright, let's hope these rubbers are not on here the same way as the other ones, and they'll just come off nice and easy. Since it's pink, we'll start with that one, because I think it's going to be friendly. Like I said, nowadays they try to peel it off diagonal or horizontal, because someone said if you peel it straight up, you could pull it up. But I'm not sure. So you see, here's this one. There's a little bit of glue in the corners. I mean, to me, this looks like glue. I might try and peel this glue up because it looks like it comes up easy, but that's an undertaking in itself, so I will make a decision. Let's go with the other one. So that was Xiom Vega X. Or Xiom, Vega X, I say X. Oh, I say Xiom. This is Nittaku Fast Start Q1. You can see super thick, so that's the max thickness for the G1. Very popular rubber. It's like one of the most popular rubbers in Japan, outside of Tenergy 05. It's like a little similar, but some key differences that people either prefer or don't prefer. So that one looks good. You wouldn't have to mess with the sponge. You could. I mean, you could try to mess with it and take the glue off and stuff, but you don't have to. Now this one, I'm curious because it looks like it would peel off really easily, but I also don't want to risk messing with it, so I don't think I'm going to. It would be the same process like I'm talking about with this. So basically you'd start just peeling it up little by little like this, and eventually either pull it all up, or you sometimes roll it, but when you pinch it and roll it, you have to be careful because the sponge can come up with the glue. So that's why, like, it's not a no-risk maneuver. If I mess with all this, maybe I end up screwing it up, and it's in good shape, and it's all flat and everything, so I don't really have to worry about that. These 2 rubbers are going on the Tibhar blade. Going on this one. I'll do that in just a bit, but I'll set those over here for now. rubber cartridges or whatever, cardboard, are always useful for kind of keeping the rubber separate while you're assembling a bunch of stuff. Like this, a piece of paper in between. Alright, still letting this one dry. It's not really important what happens to it right now. So I'll put that over here. This one, once I decide to stop putting glue on, I'm going to leave it there for a while so that it just really gets all dry. So then when I eventually peel it up, I have less of a problem because it's tedious anyway, and it's annoying if you start doing it and then the glue doesn't come up the way you wanted it to, and then it's kind of like you're just like deciding where you're going to put more glue on or just sit there and keep peeling it forever. Alright, you can see the glue on the wood is already pretty much dry because I didn't put a ton there. The rubber is still drying because you can still see it. So what I'm going to do, move this here. Since this rubber has to be good, I want to make sure I don't get any glue on the front, even though it's not a big deal. But that's there. So you can see the Omar Assar blade. It has his initials here, OA, with like a ping pong ball in that. It's really cool. Can you see it? Yeah. So, like I said, I've never actually seen one of these in person, so it's neat. I think it might be discontinued, but I'm not 100% on that. It's still available, though. I'm trying to just get, I need to get this old glue off it. Right. That's that. Take the case out. So this one's going to have Tenergy 19 on the forehand, black 2.1 and Tenergy 05FX, red 2.1 on the backhand. I've never played, I mean, I think I've tried Tenergy 05FX, but it's a popular backhand rubber. Krianga used it. And Tenergy 19 is also popular, but it works well on both sides. So. And if you're watching and you have questions or comments, if I do something wrong, you can tell me. Or if you have, like, what do you play with? Like, what racket do you use, or what rubbers? Or do you assemble your own rackets, or do you usually buy the stuff put together already? Here's the Tenergy 19. Tenergy 19 is like Tenergy 05, but it's like not quite as extreme, maybe you could say. It's a little more linear and less, a little more, well, not as much of a dangerous arc, maybe, let's say. Not as aggressive, but not quite as reactive. A lot of people like on the backhand for that reason. It's a little easier to control. But it's a good forehand rubber, too. Alright, now that I'm starting to do multiple blades at once, I have to make sure I keep track of what I'm doing. Same idea, so you see Dignic sponge is like red, and the Tenergy sponge is like orange. It's kind of cool. Tenergy sponge is softer, so it's a little more like, can be a little brittle sometimes in the beginning. But the way that one Dignic came off the other blade, I'm not even sure, because that was crazy. It fell all apart, but it was so stuck. This Revolution glue kind of foams up a bit, which is interesting. I don't know, none of the other glues don't really do that, but it doesn't bother me, I guess. The Revolution 3 gives you a good amount of time to spread it around, which is what I was saying. Like, some glues, they start to dry really quick, and by the time you're trying to spread it around to get it even, it starts clumping up and getting stringy, and that's really annoying. So I think sometimes people use those types of glues and they get upset about water-based glue, but this glue is pretty easy. See, this glue absorbed the stuff a little better, so it was a little easier to rub in. You could do more layers of glue if you want, if it really absorbs this like that, but I think it's okay. Because even though you can do more glue, it adds weight each time. But some people like it because it's a little more bounce, a little more speed, like more elastic glue there on top of the blade. Alright, that's done. Put some of the extra glue. There's not as much extra glue this time, so I'll put a little bit. Put a little more too. You can feel this blade feels looks and feels a little different on the surface than the other carbon blade. Like the sealant's a little different from Butterfly maybe on this blade compared to the Timo. This blade, that's Omar Assar there. I had that picture that I cut out of a calendar a while ago. He's like 6'5". He's tall, so he plays a little further back, but he's so consistent. He's interesting to watch play. He's like always in thrilling back and forth matches. That's the blade. Same idea. Like this Revolution 3, I'm able to kind of go over the glue again and spread it out, make sure it's everywhere. Whereas some glues, if I did that, I would have just ruined it all, kind of, and have to rub it all off or put more on if you don't get the right amount on there. See, this is like halfway dry. It's kind of drying this way. Maybe there's slightly more glue here since it's closer to me. All right, so once that dries, I'll put it on here. Same with this, and then I'll do the backhand of that, backhand of that. I'll probably do one more layer on this, like I said, just because the more layers, the more glue you use, the easier it is to eventually peel it off, and I don't want to have to redo it. And then I'll put the other glues on this alpha. So let's see, in the meantime, okay, so for example, I have this Nittaku glue, Fine Zip, and someone recommended it to me, and I'll show it to you, but I've never successfully even used it, and I'm not going to use it again. I'll either get rid of it or I'm not sure, but it comes out like a paste, and it almost looks like stuff you would put on a wall to cover up a hole, spackle or whatever. And so like it's clumpy, and you start spreading out, and it dries so quickly, and it's almost impossible. So I really don't like this stuff. It was recommended, but I'm not going to use it anymore. The free check glue is what I used to use from Butterfly, like the basic stuff, and that was always good. I'd use a few layers of that to make it stick, and that one, when you use that and pull it off, you don't actually see any like residue really, so that's kind of interesting. And then this is the GWO glue. I've used this on some of the rackets for my friend before, and it works alright, but since I'm trying to do a few rackets at once and stuff, I'd rather use this glue since I know how it reacts. Same idea here. I could have put a little more glue on the blade against that time, where I could do another layer, but I don't feel like that. And I mean, since I was only going to do one glue layer, I put a big layer. Let's see, I can show you a few things. If you're interested in any like equipment in particular, oh, what's up? Oh, hey Eric, I see you. Oh, awesome. That'll be awesome, Eric. What were the rubbers again for your new Harimoto blade you said? So here's something interesting, is that this is a hard bat blade. So I took a wood blade, a 5-ply wood, and then it has short pips on both sides, no sponge. So that's how you play the hard bat tournaments. You can choose from like 10 different short pips rubbers with no sponge, and all wood blades. So people have different blades, but the short pips are kind of standardized. And then this is a sandpaper blade. It's the same idea, 5-ply wood, but it's got sandpaper both sides, so you can play sandpaper. I glued those together and put that on there. Okay, so yeah, I get the Hurricane 3 National and the Barracuda. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Is it the Harimoto ALC? The regular Interforce? Yeah, so you can see the glue on the blades dries real quickly, and it takes longer than the sponge. This one's getting there. There's no point to rush though, because it'll take a bit, and then eventually that'll disappear too. I may end up doing another layer of glue on that one. Okay, yeah, that'll be a cool blade. Nice. I got Harimoto over here. I play with that Harimoto Super ALC now, and I really like it. We'll see. If I assemble these rackets, then I feel like doing some more. I have one other racket I just got, like a Sanwei blade. It's a cheap one, the Fextra 7. And I'll put short pips on that because I wanted to try that. Got a bunch of stuff, all this stuff hanging around me at the moment, so let's see. Here's a long pips racket, no sponge. So you can see the pips are longer on this compared to the short pips of this. I don't know if you can see it. When I assemble those are kind of annoying to assemble too, but you kind of follow the same steps I'm doing here and it works out. The pips, you just have to be kind of careful and lay it down slowly and try not to get any air bubbles. But yeah, if anyone has like assembly questions or something, ask me and I can try to give you info, because this will take a while if I'm not going to rush the thing, so. It typically takes a while to assemble the rackets. It's good to do other stuff while you're doing it. Or if you've got a few rackets to assemble, you can do it all at once. Soon enough, we'll get to actually put a sheet on them, so that'll be fun. Eric, what type of glue are you going to use, or what glue do you have? This one's almost done. I'll have to figure out how to play music or something without copyright issues, because it's kind of silent. I'm just sitting here as the glue dries. So this one, get in there, but it's not dry. I'm not going to worry about that for a while. I'll do one more layer at the end. Put this here so I have a little space. So for the utility knife, I've never really used the razor blade for utility knife. I usually use scissors, but the utility knives can definitely do the best job if you do it right. What I would do is, when you have the sheet of rubber, I might test out the very corner of it here on a cutting board or something to see, because I tried that a little earlier with the razor blade and I had trouble cutting, so you want to make sure it cuts through cleanly. And then when you have your racket, you'll have to set it down on your cutting board or whatever and outline it. And that could definitely work. That's definitely how you can get the best cut that way with the razor blade. If you were going for really perfect edges. I typically use the scissors, but my scissors are getting not as sharp, so that's also an issue. It doesn't cut quite the way, or quite as well as it used to. But my rackets get beat up pretty bad with the table, so I don't worry about cutting it too perfectly. Within a week or so, my rubbers are all cut up. Alright, you can see this one's just basically there. So that's why I'm making a little space over here, because I'd rather have it close. So you got the blade, that has the one layer of glue. It's already dried for a while. Depending on how cold or hot or humid it is, it might dry quicker or not, or if you put the fan on or have a blow dryer, you can speed up the process, but I just waited for this because that's how I typically do it. So I have the scissors here, but that's for later. I forgot. Where's the roller box? Alright, this is the roller box. So this is what I'll use to roll down the rubber. And basically, I'm going to put the rubber on, try to center it, get it started at the bottom, roll down, but I'm not going to roll it so hard that it stretches out, because then it'll pull itself back and it won't be on there as much as you want. So you kind of get it started and you roll firm enough to get it down with no air bubbles, but not so much that you're pulling it forward, especially because then if you ever take the rubber off, it'll shrink and you don't want that. So make sure you get stuff kind of out of your way. Go here. Turn it over. Get it spaced properly. So you set on the edge of the table, that's the easiest way. So once you get it down there once and it looks firmer, and then you can roll it harder. And don't worry if there's little imperfections, because those will actually usually go away once you press it down a bit and let it settle, because sometimes there's a little more glue in one spot or it's stuck a little harder here or there. So you just want to make sure it gets pretty much uniform down. Right? Looks good. And then put it here. I just don't like pressing it straight down on the table because of the wood, but not that matters. Just press it down from the other side. And depending, you know, how much you want to do it, sometimes, you know, you can wait a little while, even in this stage, right? Because it's still adhering. It's still a little wet, even though it looked dry. And if you rush to cut it and the scissors aren't cutting so well, it kind of pulls it a bit. So that's not what you want. So I'll give it just a second here. And this one's almost ready for me to do. So I'll kind of use that rhythm. I'll wait here. Do that, and then I'll do this one. And I mean, I definitely, for my rackets and stuff, I typically do 2 layers on the rubber, 1 on the blade. So if there's any issue here with this glue and this amount of glue, I will have to re-glue it. Sometimes that happens. But you could definitely, I mean, a lot of people use the blow dryers. I haven't used it personally. The most I've done is either stick it in front of like an air vent or under the fan a little extra, and that'll like speed it up by, let's say 50%. But a blow dryer could speed it up a lot. It just depends. Like, I just haven't messed with it. But you could if you were in a hurry. I always like, I just wait till I'm not in a hurry to do anything before I start messing with this, because it takes a while and you don't need to rush it, and things can go wrong and you have to redo it. So I don't have anything to do right now, so I've got all these rackets right here to put together. But either if you're in a hurry or you just kind of feel like moving it along and trying it, you can use the blow dryer, and then I don't think it makes a difference. Alright, that one's good. This one's just about ready. Usually I stick like some books on the racket once I have both sides on there for a bit, or a weight on top of the books. I just try to make sure everything's flat, like the bottom surface is flat, whatever's on top is flat, and then some weight. I used to leave it overnight, but I don't do that as much now, just for a little while. So you see, this one's just about there. It's a little bit there. I could do it if I wanted to. And before, I definitely would just have already cut it, but last time when I did it, it wasn't stuck as well as I wanted it to, and then I had to keep messing with it, so I don't want to deal with it. I'd rather wait until I do this, then I'll cut it, and then we'll do the other side. If, like, once you get better at it too, you can kind of, I could have more efficiently stacked the different order of things to get it done quicker, but I'm not trying to rush this. It's better to do it once, but do it right, instead of having to redo these. I was going to show you, this is a booster oil. So if you have like certain rubbers, some people boost them. This stuff you don't need to boost, it's already out. But maybe in a future video I could boost a rubber or something if someone was interested. You kind of put the booster on and wait a certain amount of time, you can do it some more and then glue it back. That's that. Yeah, I mean, I don't do it, but you can do it as long as, like, I don't play right after gluing it just because I want it to last as long as possible and not have issues, but basically as soon as it's really dry, you can play with it. I just always think it's better to schedule it so you have the night for it to dry and things like that. But yeah, I mean, definitely, I've seen people in the gym, they'll play, they rip off a rubber, re-glue it, start playing again, kind of go through that process. Just depends on the person. All right, this one's ready to go too. All right, so you got the orange sponge. And the butterfly. There's a little bit something on the thing. I don't want to try to get as much of the little debris off the top sheet as possible, because then when I roll it, I don't want to have to roll the debris, like pressing it in. There's a little dot on the butterfly ones in the very middle, in between those two butterfly wings, if you see it. So that's how they tell you how to line up. And this blade has a line in the middle, so that makes it a little easier. So basically, always just make sure you're laying it like, if your palm was the rubber, you put it down there first and then go down like that. And like I said, the first one, just make sure you roll it enough to get it down without air bubbles, and then you can hold it strong. And once it's on there, the roller doesn't do that much anyway, so you kind of like this. But like, you see how there's a lot of extra rubber from the sheet that you wouldn't cut, so if you were going to try out a razor blade or scissors first time, just when you take it out, just try and cut a corner on something just to see if it cuts through cleanly, because you need to make sure it goes through the sponge and the top sheet without really tearing them or being jagged. Otherwise, you'll be like sawing it here, and that would seem hard. But you'll definitely get a better cut with a blade if you do it well. Alright. Let's check. Here's this, looks pretty good. You can kind of see. And then once you clean it, a lot of times you don't really see any of the differences, you just see the pips poking through. Make sure it's all glued on the edges. The benefit of using more glue is you can put more around the edges and it definitely won't come up. And then lately sometimes I've had to put a little extra glue around the edges later, which I kind of felt bad about. But, alright, so to cut it, let's see. Yeah, I need to get a new pair of scissors at some point, but these will still do. These will be my trusty cutting scissors for a while. Alright, so you take it, usually start like this. Well, actually, to really start, I'm going to start going like this. And just get just a little bit in there. So the first part, you got to get around the handle of the scissors to the thing, and then you get there. Basically, definitely take it slow. Some people leave a little extra, some people don't. But if you just go slow, make small cuts, you're fine. Try not to cut the blade. Alright, so you try to go close to the blade, but you don't want to cut into your blade. I've done that plenty of times with mine, and it's no fun. I definitely recommend trying assembly, right, if you've never done it, because then when your rubbers get old, you can take them off, put them on a different blade for someone to use for fun, or try out different combinations without having to rely on getting new stuff or someone doing it. Let's see. Yeah, so pretty good for the first part. So leave that there for a second. So this is what you get left over. One time I made a return board, sticking the sheets in there with that and covering the lip. It's unpredictable, let's say. Yeah, these blades are someone who asked me to assemble a few, because they had them set up a few ways. They bought some new rubbers, and then they wanted me to switch some rubbers to another one too. Alright, so we got the Dignix 80 on the forehand on this side. Next we have the Dignix 80 there. I guess if I was going to try to go the fastest, I would start gluing those things first and then start messing with this. First, let me cut this. Let's see. Looks pretty good. You can see, like I say, sometimes you'll have little spots that you see something, right, but just usually wait it out and it'll disappear and look normal, especially after you play a little bit, because if you see something like a little imperfection and then you tear the sheet off, a lot of times you're going to run into some other problems, which over time you'll learn how to deal with them, but in the moments they can kind of make you freak out like you just ruined a new rubber. So if you do mess it up, let the glue dry typically first before peeling it off. Otherwise, I mean, the problem is it depends on the glue. So just practice. This Tenergy sponge is a little softer, so it cuts through easily, right? The harder the sponge, the more effort it takes to cut through. Like Hurricane and Dignix 09C, you really gotta get the scissors going, but this is good. So yeah, that one looks good too, for starters. Okay, next up. So this Tenergy 05 is going on the backhand of the Omar Assar. Dignix 80 red is going on this one on the backhand. So. Make sure I see this. So if the water-based glue gets on stuff, then you just kind of wipe it off. And once it dries, it goes away. Set up. Got your Dignix 80. I'm going to put this down here because I don't like sticking the rubbers on the wood. Alright, so I got those two on there. I'll start getting set up with this stuff. Definitely make sure you have like a good sturdy table when you're doing this, because I've also tried it on tables that weren't as sturdy, and that'll start to really mess with you as you're trying to do things. You don't want that. Alright, let me start with this. Same process now for this. And over time you'll use different glues, get used to it, and kind of see what works for you and how much you want. It'd be easier if I would just cover the whole thing in one move, but I don't. But that top part doesn't really go on the sponge anyway. So. Or it doesn't go on the blade. That's good. See, I almost got tricked. See, this one's got more sealant on it, or also maybe there's that old glue that it was on it that gave me so much trouble. So it doesn't absorb into the blade as much as it does on the Omar. So I don't need to use quite as much glue on this one. I think. I might put a little extra on it. Just to make sure. Around the edges. Definitely on my blades, I put considerably extra around the very edge in this few spots. Not that it like sticks way up or anything, I just make sure it's really saturated there on the rubber and the blade, because I'm always hitting the table. You can see it dries really quick on the blade. So we wait there. Tenergy 05FX. This is probably I would say the Tenergy is most popular with people kind of just starting with Tenergy, because Tenergy 05 was always the most popular, and FX was a little easier for people to play, especially on the backhand, because it's a little softer, more controlled in some sense, I guess, or at least easier for maybe beginners and intermediates to play compared to Tenergy 05. But even some advanced players really like it and use it. I think a lot of people go from Rosanna to Tenergy 05 FX to Tenergy 05, for example. But now people play more Dignics, and that's. Alright. Put a little more on the Tenergy sponge again because it's a little more absorbent. Even like the sponges sometimes work differently, so you gotta find ones you like. Maybe I didn't use quite as much as I thought. that type of stuff with a lot of glues would have caused me problems because I'm patting around so much once it's been drying for a bit. But Revolution 3, it just kind of keeps working, so I'm happy about that. Use more glue this time because that sponge is pretty much out. Anyone watching, who's your favorite player or kind of favorite matches you've seen recently, or what are you working on to improve? So yeah, I could have, like sometimes I've tried to do more than 2 blades at once, and then I start making mistakes. Or, I don't know, things can just, if something goes wrong, then you're kind of set there juggling the different timings. But you can definitely do more than 2, of course. It's just these ones we're putting on the new rubbers, so I want to make sure I do those ones well, and then I'll put those other rubbers on this other blade, and then I'll probably try this. I'll set up this pips blade. It's going to take a second to dry, so I'll show you this one. As long as I don't knock things over. So, I have so many blades, and I bought a new one for some reason. But, I just bought the Sanwei Fextra 7. It's a 7-ply wood blade. And this one's been around for a really long time. And I've always thought it worked well when people used it, particularly some pips players and stuff, who my coach trains. And he had them use these blades. So I wanted to get a 7-ply of this for me to try. Both for normal inverted play on one side, but also I want to try short pips on this one. So I bought these short pips, I'll show you. This is only like, well, I got it for $18. But I think it's even available even slightly cheaper on AliExpress. So it's a good blade for like getting started with a slightly more advanced setup. If someone was practicing a lot but wanted to get off of a pre-made. And I'll be putting these short pips on there. And this GoldArc from DHS GoldArc 8 that came off a different blade. I'll put on there. I'll do that a little later. If I'm still in the mood. Quadri, yeah, Quadri is amazing. He's got that big forehand, and he's worked real hard to develop his backhand. And his backhand, since it's kind of flat and punchy, it's fast. He's not going to miss the ball very often because he's got a lot of surface area, and it disrupts people's rhythm. But his forehand is so overpowering. He's amazing to watch. He's had some really good performances lately. We'll see if he breaks through to the finals or wins one. So this is almost dry. That one dried pretty quickly this time. Maybe I didn't use quite as much techniques. That one's got a little ways to go. Yeah, that one dried quickly. Yeah, that sounds like a good one too. I've heard of that. Yeah, the 7-ply woods can be real fast, real kind of direct and crisp. Some are flexible, some aren't. But yeah, you can have plenty of 7-ply blades that are faster than carbon blades. Like Christian Carlson famously played with 7-ply for a long time. I don't know if he currently still plays with it, but even at the highest levels, there's plenty of 7-ply blades out there. All right, this one's ready to go, so I'm gonna create space again. That way so I don't get confused. So this is the Dignix 80 going on the other side of the Timo Boll. Same idea, they got the dot in the middle of the butterfly wings. So you line that up with the middle of the handle. or as best you can. And definitely, I don't let it lay more than like a third of the way down before I start getting on the thing. But just get it on there and then it'll work. And then once you have the rubber on both sides, then you can kind of flip it over and do this a little more. Kind of evens out the pressure. I press a little on the edges, but I don't do too much because I don't want to. Oops, sorry. I don't want to deform the rubber. Alright, there's that. Leave that there for now. I'm gonna need that roller box though, so I gotta get that. And what made you decide to try the Harimoto, Eric, as opposed to using the Nittaku still, the acoustic? So this one up here is pretty much dry. So I'm going to do one more layer there because I want to make it even. I just want to make it really easy for me to get this off when it comes time to do it. Like I said, I'm just making a thick layer of glue so I can peel it off eventually and get the old glue out of the sponge so I can. On this one it wasn't really necessary, it wasn't so bad, but I wanted to show the process because I don't know if a lot of people do that. And it's not needed that much, but every once in a while you'll get a new rubber and you'll start to put it on and something will go wrong and you have to take it off and all of a sudden you have all this glue stuck in your brand new sponge that you just paid $80 for or whatever. And you're going to want a way to get that glue out. So if you try this, you'll get it. Some people are using like tear mender or something, some other glue, but I think enough layers of a table tennis glue that has a thickness. So this talks about viscosity. This is normal. There's normal, medium, and high. So maybe even like the medium viscosity at high would work better for this application of trying to get old glue out, but for normal gluing, I'm not sure. I think it depends on what type of climate you're into. This is the sponge that comes with the Revolution 3. I actually like that a little more, but I'm using this other one. Open up this Sanwei blade. Does anyone buy table tennis stuff off AliExpress ever? Sanwei blade. The Fextra 7-ply wood designed in Japan, from China though. That's good. You can see it. Oh, this one? So this is a rubber that I had taken off another blade. It was already used, and it had a bunch of old glue in the sponge. And so I want to put it on a different blade later, and instead of just putting more glue on and having it be a little uneven, I'm putting a few layers of this glue on it so that when it all dries, I can slowly peel it up, and it'll pull the old glue out of the sponge, in theory. But I mean, it works. I've done it plenty now. Like, I've done to a bunch of rubbers now just to practice it, but it's tedious. It can take you like 20-30 minutes just sitting there peeling it up, because if you do it too much at a time or try and just roll it, it'll pull the sponge up depending how brittle it is, so you have to be careful. But it's just like I said, so you can basically save a rubber somehow if you have to, using this method to get the old glue out of the sponge if it's all messed up. But if it's old glue but it's not, if it's all even, then it doesn't really matter. You don't need to go through all this trouble. I'm mainly doing it just to, I wanted to document for science purposes. Let's see, so this is pretty close. I should get this blade out of here so I don't confuse myself. Anyway, this one goes back up there. So it's got a little bit of glue there or there. So if you use table tennis glue, you get used to this idea. You put it on, you just wait for it to dry up clear. And then once it's clear, it's time to put it on. This one's just about ready. And I would say a lot of times if you do 2 layers of glue on a new rubber, the first one goes in quickly because it absorbs more, and then the second one doesn't go in as quickly, so you don't have to use quite as much glue, and it stays a little more on the surface. So just depends how much. I think unless you experiment and stuff, it's hard to say what's better for you. And I could have cut this already too, but same idea. I might as well just let it sit as long as possible. Sometimes there's no point because it just sets. What else I got? I just stuck stuff on there so I could pull it out and kill time. So this is a Yasaka Modeling soft carbon. So this has the softer outer wood with the carbon, and I have rocks to 7 both sides. This is an example of a blade I had laying around. I took the rubbers off an old blade or another blade I was using, put it on this, and I try and keep rackets around like this for people to use when they don't have a racket. And I try to make something that's easy to play with for someone who's not used to fast equipment. Same here, this is a Paleo Cat, and it has these Donic Blue Storm rubbers that came from an older blade that I was assembling for someone, so took them off, put them on here. And then, so I've got 2 good little rackets here for just kind of fun playing. Not like they're good enough to do whatever you need with. Tenergy's just about ready. Yeah, I'm trying to just review random equipment I have within arm's reach to kill time. So if you have any questions about certain things, look, you guys clean your rackets? Because I got cleaners. Spin refresh. This one's easy to use. It's good for the butterfly rubbers. You just pump it and then wipe it on with a sponge. But I think for tacky rubbers, it's not ideal. I don't think that's a good one for tacky rubbers. But for the butterfly ones, it's good. For tacky rubbers, I think water is best. But you can use something like this, the Revolution 3 Cleaner Rejuvenator. But I've learned the Hurricane top sheet, you have to be really careful because if it has a little piece of dirt or anything on it and you start rubbing it, it'll break it apart or tear up the surface. This stuff works well. This lasts forever. I've had this bottle for 3 years now, and there's still stuff I don't use all the time though. I think these types of sponges are good. I don't know how these sponges work, and I bought one. I'm still not sure what it's supposed to do. It just absorbs all the cleaner when I try to use it. So, if someone knows how to use one of those, let me know. And same idea, like I said. So I got this. I'll save that for another time. All right. So Tenergy's ready to glue. Right? You can't see the glue anymore. You can see the finish on the blade. You can see the glue's there, but it's dry, so it's clear. Put it here. I try to line it up straight from me, not too far. Take your rubber. This is the Tenergy 05 FX. Need the roller. Here. First one, not so hard, definitely not trying to stretch it, just get it down, no air bubbles, then after that, press it on as hard as you feel like. It's good if you have a book that's flat and bigger than the racket, so you can just stick on it and press all down. That's easy, because then it applies the force evenly instead of sitting here with your hands or trying to put weights on books and stuff, because for a rubber like 19 and 05 FX, those are softer than the Dignic, so you have to be a little more careful not deforming the rubber too much. Alright, so I'll leave that one there a bit. Take this one. Yes, I'm not going to rush on that one because I let this one sit a while, so I'll do that. This one's been sitting a while. Right, you kind of see it. See the outline of the racket on here where it goes around the edges. get it started from here. Small cuts. Oops. Bumped the camera. Definitely use like a sharp scissors or knife at this point. I need to get some new scissors. Especially if I'm going to be making videos about it. I mainly stream this because I've recorded Assembly before and I never got around to editing it together, so I thought, okay, if I just stream it, I'll have it. Because the sharper your scissors and stuff, the better the cuts are. It doesn't pull the sponge as much, doesn't make it so jagged, but if you use edge tape, it doesn't make a big deal as long as you do a good job. Alright, there's one. Here's one. I don't put edge tape, I try not to put edge tape on right away because I want it to like breathe a little bit on the edges so the glue on the sides can dry real well, but definitely most people before you play you should have edge tape on unless you're really careful or you just don't worry about it. But look, you can see here, so there's the rubber. So I'll let that sit for a bit and then I'll stick some weight on it or book on it and then I'll put side tape on it a little later. I'm not sure if you can post. I don't have it set. This is my first time doing the lob, so I don't have it set anyway, but probably not. But you can tell us the information if you feel like. Anyway, so that's the first one. That's the Timo Boll ALC, Dignix 80 2.1, Dignix 80 2.1, in black and red on both sides. So that's the outer carbon blade from Butterfly, classic, and an anatomic handle. So you can see it's a little different than a flared handle. Example, here's a difference. See, flared handle in the middle, it's the skinniest and it goes like there and it flares at the end. But this one, there's a little bit of a bump in the middle to fit into your hand a little more, the anatomic. And I switched to anatomic recently and I kind of like it because before I felt like there might be a little too much to have to pinch there, but now I don't have to. So yeah, there's that one. Looks pretty good. I'll leave it here. Pointing towards Timo. That. We gotta cut this other one. I'll leave that for a second more. Alright, so next I'm gonna be taking this Samsonov one and we're gonna put the rubbers that we took off of this blade onto here. So put that in the corner for now. Who knows, I might even put another layer on just to keep delaying it. So look here. That's the backhand. Alright, so we got Fast Art G1 in black for the forehand, and then we have Vega X in pink on the backhand. So I don't know how many of you have seen pink rubbers. I've never played with a different color rubber, but it's kind of neat. I wish once one side doesn't have to be black, then maybe I would play the different colors, or I mean, black and pink's a kind of good combo. Some of the combos I'm not big on, but it's neat. Definitely catches your attention when your opponent's using it. It looks cool when it's sitting there on the table. Alright, what do I want to do first? I'll cut this first so I can get it out of the way. Alright, so this is the Omar Assar blade we're going to cut. I'm cutting the Tenergy 05 FX. So this sponge is definitely softer because it's the FX version of Tenergy. So the scissors will cut through it pretty easily, especially compared to Dignix. But you still never try and like rush it. There's no point. You just spend all that time trying to glue it. Why would you rush the cutting part? You kind of adjust your grip as you get like 1/3 of the way through the paddle each time. Right, so I kind of get to here, and that's what I grip over. Just to make it easy to hold, like I said, because you don't want to, I'm not here like pushing on the rubber, I'm making sure the scissors do the work, otherwise you're going to start yanking it off the blade. Let's see. So this one, you can feel the top sheets have a different feel on the Tenergy and the Dignics, so it's kind of neat. So this is the Omar Assar blade, anatomic handle as well. The large handle, you can feel it in your hand, it feels different. With Tenergy 19 and Tenergy 05FX, if you're curious. If you look at these codes on here, let's see if I can focus it. Well, you see on the black better. So the ITTF 14041, 14 is butterfly, 041 would be the Tenergy 19 rubber itself. So when you play like a really official tournament, if you're like really good, then they'll check to make sure your rubbers are official and on that allowed sheet of racket coverage from ITTF. And if they aren't, then you'll be in trouble. Oh, and the other side was Tenergy 05 FX. I think I showed you that before. So here it is again. Once it's all cut, did a pretty good job cutting, I think. Definitely did a good job gluing, which is more important because if you're hitting the ball with the edge a lot, that's a problem. So those are done. Those are like the high pressure ones. Now I can kick back, relax, and put on the Tibhar rubbers. Just kidding. All right. Let's see if I get this one. So those are done. All right. We're going to do this one, and I'm going to do my Sanwei Fextra one. So we have two going again. Here. Let's get this moving all around. It's been here a while. Let's see what we got here. So, if you've been with me this long, I appreciate it. Definitely a shout out to Eric for chatting with me. Eric's part of my club, Sunrise Table Tennis Club in Clearwater. And he's getting a really cool new racket pretty soon, so we'll have to check that out sometime. He's been keeping track of the equipment we use, and I'm curious to learn what everyone's using. Alright, so this rubber is the DHS GoldArc 8. That's a well-known rubber, it's been around a while. It's not like the other DHS rubbers like Hurricane and stuff. You know, Hurricane is hard and tacky. This has a strong, springy sponge and a grippy top sheet, but it's not tacky. This is more like a, well, it's not like Tenergy, but more like a Tibhar or Tenergy type rubber compared to their other Hurricanes. So this one had glue all in the sponge, and I did this process to it. You can see a few little divots in there from the sponge from where I had to peel it off, but the old glue was all uneven, and I'm not even sure what it was, so I managed to get it all out of there. So it shows you what's possible with the sponge. I gotta see what lighting works best and stuff, if you can see it. Alright, anyway. That'll go on the backhand of the Sanwei. You can see it. I mean, it mostly fits. It's a little bit small on the bottom, but it'll work. That'll go on my backhand. Well, this is just a racket that's for fun, anyway. Then we got our 729 Friendship 80240 Mystery 3. Soft, short pips rubber. It's like 2mm sponge or something. I was looking for the short pips with sponge that were the easiest to get started with for an inverted player, because I've seen some players recently play short pips on one side. The ones I've seen recently were playing it on the backhand, and they were playing like a normal forehand with serves and third balls, but then the short pips on the backhand are very disruptive and punchy and changes the rhythm, and it seems to be very effective. So I'm curious to play the style a little bit, but then also some people play the short pips on the forehand in more of a hitting style, and then when I rally with people with short pips on the forehand, it's hard to stay in the rally because the ball changes a little bit and it comes a lot flatter than you think once you get into that sustained countering. So it's different. I want to see what it feels like. That's a pretty cool little folder for you. Got the plane going somewhere. It's a mystery. And then the ball spinning around to this thing, which is also a mystery. Maybe it's a propeller. And it'll lead you to victory. So, this is the sponge, the short pip sponge. Or the short pips rubber, RITC. You see these? I'll show you this. So, That's my hard bat with the Osaka A12 short pips, no sponge. So you can see the sponge, the pips on this 729 are like wider. And then there's a big sponge on this one, so it's going to play differently. Get this sticker off. Does anyone out here play with pips, like short pips or long pips? I'll probably make a long pips racket here too. I have a rubber for it. I just have to figure out which racket to put it on. Mainly I'm trying to it's fun learning the different stuff, and you play against pips players, so if you learn to play with pips a little bit, you understand it, and also like if you're helping people practice, it would be good to know how to use each type of rubber. So it's got the beige sponge, it's pretty neat. Beige sponge, the short pips, I'll put that, well I'm just going to put it on this side of the blade. You could say it's the forehand, but I'll be switching around. That's why I got the straight handle for the Fextra, so you could play it and twiddle easier compared to the flared or the anatomic. Right, so the straight handle is easier to twiddle, so defensive players or people who have to transition very quickly often use a straight handle. So that's why I'll play short pips one side, the GoldArc on the other. So you have a fast inverted one, good for blocking and countering and attacking, and then you have the short pips, which I'm not sure what it'll be like. You can definitely attack with it because it got a sponge. All right, so that's this side. I'll do this one first, I guess. And then this side, doesn't really matter which one I do first. So that's the Nittaku Fast Arc G1. Same idea, since I just took the rubbers off, you gotta make sure there's no debris on it, but it looks good. This is Samsonov Alpha Tibhar Offensive. I don't know much about this blade, but it's got Samsonov's approval, it's good with me. So you can see how this one came off another blade, so it's like this. So you have to be a little careful when you glue it, because if you use too much glue and it doesn't, it's going to slowly move to the middle as it dries. So for this one, I'm going to make sure I don't use too much glue, and I'm careful not to like let it pool up. I need to be delicate with that one. All right. So I'm actually going to put the drops more in the middle than I would normally. Like normally I'd spread it all over, but I don't want to get too saturated out there, so that's my idea. Let's see. Kind of pull it from the middle. Whenever you're reusing the rubbers off a different one, especially when you don't get the old glue off and stuff, it's hard to know just how much is going to absorb, if it's going to get caught up anywhere, if it'll be all smooth or dissolve completely, like if it'll work normally or something comes up, but the more you practice, the better. So this one's like going towards the blade. If you had one that was going the other way for some reason, you might want to use more glue, especially around the edges, to make sure it gets stuck. And you also want to make use of like books or whatever to pressure it down. All right, that's enough. I don't want to overdo it. Let's do this. I can tell this blade will absorb the glue, so I'll use a little extra. Right, if the glue or the wood feels really porous and dry, then it's going to absorb the wood more, or the glue. If it feels like really slick and sealed, or it's got like a layer of glue already on it, then it's not going to absorb it. You guys will come back in like 3 days. I'll still be gluing rackets. Alright, so you can see I used a good amount of glue on this one because I think it'll go in. And also, since I didn't use quite as much glue on the rubber because I didn't want it to pull up, I use a little more on the blade to kind of balance it out. That's the theory. Alright, so that one's good. Alright, I gotta think. Because like I said, I was going to put this one on this side, but I'm mostly going to play it Just depends which way I want to feel it. It doesn't really matter. I'll put it on the backhand because that was my plan. No, I have to put it black on the forehand. Alright. This one, new sponge, thick sponge, and a slow rubber. Or, not really slow rubber, but it's not like a high speed, crazy rubber, so I don't mind using a little extra glue getting it in there. Definitely, like, make sure you're not cramped when you're doing this stuff. Right now I have a tripod in my way a little bit, but definitely want space to work. So this didn't absorb the glue as much as I expected, so I've got a little bit extra here. That's not a big deal. That's pretty good, but and then since there's so much extra glue on my sponge, I don't think I need any more. Just always try to make it even in like the blade part where you're going to hit the ball the most, and make sure it's strong on the edges where it's going to get bumped around the most and have the most likely problems if it hits a table or gets pulled up, whatever. I mean, some people put multiple layers on both. I used to put more glue on for sure, but then I just thought, well, why have a heavier blade for no reason? If, in my case, it didn't matter. I didn't think it did. So for those just coming in, this has a lot of layers of glue on it. I'm just trying to build it up so that I can eventually peel it off, get the old glue off. I'm putting these two rubbers on this blade. That's Fast Dart G1. This is Xiom or Xiom Vega X Hot Pink Edition. And that's going on the Tibhar Samsonov Alpha Offensive. This is 729 short pips. It's going on my Sanwei Fextra with some DHS GoldArc 8. And that's, you can see it's 47.5 degrees, that's the hardness. There's a 50-degree version too of GoldArc 8 that's harder. And this is max sponge, so this is a pretty quick rubber. This is fast. To me, it's not like, I'm probably not quite as fast as Tibhar MXP, but it's a similar ID rubber. Or a Tenergy 64 maybe. Do you guys watch MLTT? Do you watch Major League Table Tennis? If so, who do you support? See the hat? So, like I was talking about before, oh, you don't watch MLTT, Eric? You should check it out sometime. I think the next one's actually the weekend in Broward. I'm not sure the exact date, February 14th maybe, Valentine's Day weekend or something. I went to the last one there, it was good in November. Yeah, Liam Pitchfork. He really sticks it to his opponents. I definitely like watching him play. And then Andy Pereira's on the team now, so him and Gorak visited our club recently. That was a lot of fun to watch them practice. And I got to hit with Pereira a little bit and try to return his serves. That was neat. Who else? Mark Duran's always really fun to watch. I actually think the way I play my backhand in matches right now is kind of like that, very punchy, extending it down the line for a lot of those shots, but I'm trying to build the topspin also. He's amazing to watch. There's a lot of amazing players in MLTT, especially Season 2 now, so it's really great. Alright, these are Hurricane 3 rubbers. These are provincial versions, blue sponge. I got these off AliExpress a while back. I haven't used them because I started playing Dignics 05 and Dignix 80 on my racket. So. But at some point, I'll take these and I'll do a little boosting so people can see what that's like. Those. So this one's pretty much dry. This is about ready. I've run through pretty much all my props. We've been here a while now. Yeah, I mean, you kind of answered the question yourself. I couldn't handle those weird slow spins. There's a lot of spin on that ball. Right, like, I mean, those serves crazy. And then when they start snaking the ball, or like a player like that, or even just a player who's a couple levels above someone, when they play relaxed and controlled, it's not that it makes it that much easier, because then they're comfortable and they're spinning the ball, they're loose. Right. So it's like, even when a player is playing relaxed, it can almost become more difficult. But you get to play with them a little bit, so that's good. They said they'll come back and practice some more, so maybe more people get a chance. We'll see how anyone else handles those. Alright, so this one's ready to go on. Make a little space. So when you put on the rubbers from taking off another blade and putting it on, they're not always going to line up perfectly, and if they're too small in some dimension, maybe you have to lift them up a little bit or figure something out, or just accept that they're not going to be perfect. Normally, which I didn't do in this exact case, but I should have put it next to the blade before I glued it at all, so I would have had a definite idea just how close it was going to be and what I would need to do. Because now I'm not quite sure, but we'll figure it out. Looks like this rubber is smaller than the blade, so I'm going to put it up just a bit. Yeah, so it was a little bit taller, but a little bit skinnier. So I could have pulled it down a bit, but it'll be alright. The side tape, you won't see it too much. See, so if you stick it all the way down, then it doesn't show at the top. So for this one, the ideal will be like that to match it up more or less. I'll leave that there. That one's still drying. You can still see the glue, so it's not worth gluing yet. But I can cut this one off. I'll wait a second to see. I mean, technically, I could let it dry. I could do it slightly better, but I don't think I'm gonna mess with it. Wait to decide. Because basically this one I'll just be cutting off a little bit anyway, but I don't want to make it smaller than it has to be. That feels fun though. Alright, that one's still drying, so I'll start up this other side for now, and then I'll figure out what to do with that other side. This is what I was saying. So basically you could try and peel off all that glue and it would probably come off alright, but it would take a while and things could go wrong, so it's in good enough condition, I'm not going to worry about it. That's good enough. You can see, since it's got the old glue on it, it doesn't go in quite as much. It stays a little bit bubbly on the surface, but more or less looks like how it always does. Let's see how much is in here. I'll need a little bit extra. But it's good to get that out of your sponge when you can each time, so that you kind of can start over a little bit. Yeah, so this one, this blade face is a little bit scratchy. I can feel it from the old glue. So you always have to be a little careful. If there's like a scratchiness from old glue on a blade, try to put a little extra glue so that it doesn't just like dry out and then you're trying to spread just a little glue all over a scratchy blade that's absorbing it. It's better use a little extra glue and smooth it out, and it'll dry how it dries. Ultimately, the way you finish over here with the glue doesn't matter as long as it's even. But it doesn't stop you from doing it a lot. Alright, so you can see this blade's all dry, this one's still dry, it hasn't absorbed, so I'm just going to keep waiting. This one, I'm going to stop putting glue on that one, and then once it's actually dry, I'll peel it off towards the end. This one? Yeah, the blue and blue. It's different. I think this is, I don't know if it's like a basic blade, but it's definitely not one of the higher end Samsonov ones. It's like a little more like a beginner or advanced beginner combo or intermediate blade, I think. But with good rubbers on it, it's still going to play well and aggressively. Like with Fast Arc and the Vega X. So that will take a while to dry. That's drying already. This is dry and this is not yet dry. Anyone else watching, have you ever assembled a racket, or you're watching to learn how to? Any questions I can always answer? And Eric, if you have any other questions, let me know. We'll let that dry for a sec. Here's my blade, in case anyone was wondering, hadn't seen it yet. It's the Butterfly Harimoto Interforce Super ALC. I have Dignix 05 on the forehand, 2.1, Dignix 80, 1.9 on the backhand. I've been using it almost 3 months now, not quite. But I've done well with it so far. I've been feeling good at matches. It's inner carbon, so I like that. It gets kind of dirty because it has the light part in the handle, but I like how it feels. It's got the anatomic handle. I'm starting to get the feel for the rubbers on the forehand, so it's been good to me. I'm happy. I even won a medal at the US Open in Las Vegas with it. I made the semifinals of the adult under 1700. And you can see my rubbers are moved up a little bit because I had played with them and they get so chipped up. You take them off, and I actually did the thing where I got the glue out of the sponge and then moved them up just slightly so that you can move it and cut a bit. But I've already done it. I've re-glued these twice already, so they're pretty beat up. I have an extra racket, the same exact thing, that's got the new ones that I use also. we'll see. You can see how long that new sponge is taking to dry. That happens too, so you just never know. That's why you don't want to rush it. I mean, a blow dryer would have got it done by now. I wanted to test out the live stream feature just, well, like I said, for the assembly, since I've been too lazy to edit them, so that'll help. At least now there's some video if people want to look at it, and you get like a real-time view of it, how long it takes. And then I want to start doing some streams from our club with the new robot we have, and then, you know, people practicing a bit, and I'll try and record my stuff a little more. I kind of took a break from recording my matches, but I need to start doing it, so I have a tournament in a few weeks. I'll try to do that. Record a little more training. I don't know if people like watching robot training, so I can do some of that. Find a way to make that interesting. And virtual reality. I wish the virtual reality was a little easier to live stream, because then it'd be fun if you could see the VR table tennis, and I'd have a camera on me in person. I haven't been playing it that much, but it would be fun to do it like that. If you don't play 11 VR, if you haven't tried it, you should try it somehow. If you know someone with a VR headset, like the MetaQuest 2 or 3 or whatever, it's only $30 in the store, and it's really fun. It feels like playing table tennis, but you're in a virtual reality headset. And even like, to me, there's a lot of good features. You can use a ball machine, this and that, but to be able to play matches with people all around, and they're really good on there, it's really useful. And you can practice your serves and third balls, and you get the pressure of being in match situations and close spots and kind of work through it. You can even do tournaments. And the ball machine's really neat because it can do certain sequences that'd be really hard for a robot to do, because it can, you know, it's generating it virtually as opposed to actually having to do it. So there's a lot of options there. Once it can be easier to stream, I'll do it. You could stream like training or custom matches, but streaming online play, I'm not sure how to do it yet. I think they have some new features to do it, so I'll look. Because that's a little more interesting to watch, maybe, than practicing on a robot or practicing serves, or obviously normal training's good. And yeah, people do seem to like to watch match videos, so I'll have to do some more of those. This one's almost done. It's been a while. This one, you can see, it's still coming in. It's interesting to see that this blade is like in 2 halves, yeah. Yeah, I see what you're saying now. But the grains are different. I don't even know. Could be different pieces of wood put together. What other YouTube channels do you guys like for table tennis? I like the Olaf Kosalovsky guy a lot for the technical stuff. That table tennis teaching channel with the translated videos from the Chinese lessons is really good. Obviously for fun, Table Tennis Daily, Pongfinity. Adam Barrow. Like I said, I like watching MLTT a lot. I obviously watch a lot of WTT. So yeah, if you like watching table tennis, let me know what you like. And also, yeah, what type of stuff you like to see or are interested in, or if you have questions about assembly or equipment. I don't know a ton, but I know some. Like this one, this is the Yasaka Sweden Extra. That's kind of a blade that a lot of people recommend to people when they're getting their first custom setup. It's 5-ply all wood. And it's a little bit like, they say the outer plies are a little bit hard, maybe feeling compared to some normal all-around blades, but it's definitely a good starting block and benchmark for future blades. This has Roxa Z on the forehand, it's kind of hard, tacky, hybrid. Not very fast, a little bit dead. You can also see it came off a different blade, that's why it's different size. And then this is the Fast Arc G1 here too. I think someone gave this to me to try actually, so I put it on here. And it's such a good rubber, it's so popular, like I said. I don't play with it as my main blade, but I like using it. Alright. This one's, I mean, they're both just about ready, but we've been waiting for this one for a while, so I'm going to try these pips, which, as I'm not a pips player, sometimes putting the pips on is a little weird. But I'm getting better at it. I'll have to decide, like, sometimes you can use the roller with the pips, but you can't really put that much pressure on. You kind of have to do it. But this has a sponge. Like I said, if anyone out there is watching and plays with pips and you want to give you tips on assembling pips for rackets, I'll do it. This one has such a thick sponge, it doesn't feel that different from inverted. So you got to line up in the middle. This one I'm not going to worry so much about the roller right now. It's very lightly. Alright, so I barely put any pressure on the whole part. It looks pretty good. Because I don't want to put too much pressure on the pips themselves, and you don't want to let it, like, the space between the pips get stretched out in weird ways. You want it to go in uniform. And really, small air bubbles kind of figure themselves out, I think. But you try not to have them. So yeah, that looks pretty good, I think. See, that's the short pips with the sponge, the friendship rubber. This one's ready. So this one, I'm just going to lift up just a bit, but I'm not going to lift up quite as much as that other one. That one I saw was going to be a little bit off just because since it was narrower, it lined up right on this side, but not quite on this side. So I tried to roll it just a little bit, pushing it that way. Especially because these are already used on the other blade, so they'll get stuck on here and they won't be being used on anything else, I don't think, because they're almost, well not yet, but they will be. So I'm trying to press that down as much as possible. That one's good. You can see it's got that much gap. The other one's got slightly more gap. I'm still thinking about this. I'm letting it dry because I might take this one off and redo it, but it's pretty good, so I don't know. This mark was already there before. This one's good. So that one coming off of another blade is as good as it's going to get. This one, I could drop it down a slight bit and it'll fit a little better here, a little better there. But it also can cause more problems. Feels good. I don't think I'm going to worry about it. But I'm not going to cut it yet. So those rubbers came off the Omar Assar blade. Okay, now I gotta glue this one. I forgot to do that because that first sheet took so long. But that might be my sign to do the other one. Yeah, it definitely looked weird. Other thing, I'm trying to think. I've heard of some blades having like two pieces of wood pressed together like that. It almost looked like that, but the grains matched enough where it seems like just one side had some weird effect to it. I don't know. That was weird. But yeah, you're right. I didn't notice that until you pointed it out. Then it was very clear. So interesting. If you had to estimate how many blades do you have now, Eric? Okay, yeah, that's good. Do you have them set up so you could use any of them if you wanted to, or someone could use them, like play with them, right? Or they have any missing rubbers or anything? Are they all complete? Let me think. That's part of why I want to do this too, because I've been taking like inventory of what I have. I'll look around. Most of them are here at the moment. well, you gotta figure, this Sanwei one is mine, but all those other blades weren't mine that I've been messing with for assembly. But yeah, so this one, probably 15 or 20, yeah. But a lot of them, like those Yosaka ones, are reasonable price, and I wanted to try different things when I was getting discounts on them. Right, so I had the inner carbon, or the fast 5-ply Marlin extra offensive. That inner carbon was the soft Marlin soft carbon. I had the Sweden extra. And then I have this 7-ply. I have the Eula Viva 7-ply, so those are my all wood blades. Then I have my carbon blades. Alright, so those are going alright. This will take a bit. So I'm going to cut the pink rubber. I'm cutting the pink rubber because that one is definitely as good as it can be. Still thinking about this other one. It's probably a case where I should just not worry about it too much. Yeah. So it can be tough sometimes when you try to cut these once you put them on from a different blade, because you have to find enough material to get started with the cut, but you don't want to cut too far into it if you don't have to. And sometimes if it's close, like you try to get lined up as close as you can anyway, so then it's hard to find the extra material. So here you go, this is the one I moved those blades from the Omar, or those rubbers from the Omar Assar. A little gap there and there. I tried to lift it up a bit, but it could have fit slightly better, but that's about as good as I could hope. Here's the Xiom Vega, same idea. I lifted it up just a bit. I mean, that was pretty good. I could cut that better in a little bit, but I'll let it dry first. All right, so that's that one. That's the Tibhar Samsonov Alpha, Nittaku Fast Arc G1, Xiom Vega X. Hot pink. This is still drying, so I'll show the people. This is the Butterfly Omar Assar blade with the oversized handle with Tenergy 19 forehand, Tenergy 05 FX backhand. I'll put some butterfly side tape on these in just a bit probably. But I like to make sure the glue dries and also that they settle in before I put the side tape. Because once you put side tape on, if you try to press it or something, the side tape gets in the way. Here's the Timo Boll ALC, Dignix 80 on the forehand, Dignix 80 on the backhand. It still has the little plastic cover on the badge, but I won't take it off because that keeps it nice for a while anyway. So yeah, this one looks good. Happy with that for sure. Feels good. It's pretty light in the hand actually. I'll compare it to, let's see, is mine still here? No. Anyway, yeah, feels good. Alright, that's Dignix 80 both sides, which I use Dignix 80 on my backhand, and I always thought, yeah, it's a good rubber for both sides. It works very well on these carbon blades. Especially on the Timo Boll ALC and Viscaria, I felt like Dignix 80 is really, really good. Tenergy 19 on the forehand here, like I showed you. It's a good one, 05 FX on the backhand. Boom, boom. Just got this to do, and then problem is I have 2 rubbers I could put on something, but I don't have the blade for it right now. I don't want to just take apart this one for no reason. So this will probably be the last. That'll be the last assembly of the night. And then let's see what happened over here. See if it's dry enough. If it's not dry enough, I'm not going to worry about it yet. But if it's dry enough, I'll try to peel it off a bit so you can see. And then I'll put the side tape on. That makes sense for timing. Alright, let's see. So this is what was that? 3 layers of Revolution 3 glue was on top of the old layer of glue. And they were pretty thick layers, so you can see like this little line was from the very original old glue that I wanted to try to get off. But it was pretty smooth. You could have either just glued it on without doing it or this, but I like to try it sometimes, so let's see. Let's see if it'll come off. it takes so long sometimes, so I'm not sure I'll be able to do that right here. So you want to get started somewhere where it's not so important, but sometimes it's really tough. So you've got to find a place for it to start. And if it doesn't start, you can either wait and let it dry and then come back in a bit. Try different spots. Sometimes you're going to have to be a little rough in a certain spot to get started, maybe. So you got to find a good part. And sometimes it just doesn't really work. That's why I did say it's good to smooth it out a little bit sometimes just in case, but eventually it'll come up. I'll start trying this with the other glue that's recommended for it. Maybe it's easier. Yeah, not going to be much more exciting table tennis assembly action tonight. That's not working. Sometimes the response is just add more glue, or just wait for it to dry more, or just keep trying. The live stream starts, or ends kind of how it started with me peeling off. All right, thanks, Eric. I appreciate you being here. I'll see you later. We've got our first chance. So see, getting just that little bit. I don't have the camera for it. Just that little bit peeling up can be enough to get it started. Because basically you've created one big layer of glue stuck in the sponge. Created a bigger problem, but eventually it can solve the little problem. Whether that's really a good way of doing things or not, it's up to you. In certain sponges it doesn't work well on, so sometimes it's risky. So if you're here watching now, I've assembled these rackets. If you are new and just coming in and you wanted me to tell you about them, please just type something and I'll tell you all about them. And then also, I'm gluing one more sheet onto here. They're still waiting for it to dry. And I'm trying to complete this, which was an old sheet of rubber with a glue in the sponge. I put a bunch of new glue on it, letting it dry, and I'm trying to peel it all off together so it gets the old glue out of the sponge, and it's working little by little, but sometimes this takes a really long time. You should actually be doing something that you can keep yourself busy with, like a movie or something. But, like I said, if anyone out there wants to hear about any of these blades or rubbers, let me know. In the meantime, I'm waiting for this to dry. And I'm going to do my best to get this old glue out of this sponge. So it's coming up just a bit. Basically, once you get a little bit up, you gotta just keep peeling it little by little. I hope it sticks together. I hope it sticks together without tearing up the sponge too much. You can try rolling your finger on it sometimes, but you have to be careful because when it works, it can also start pulling up the sponge a little bit and it'll take chunks out. So you do it, but be careful. You just kind of got it. Little by little you go, and then eventually you'll start to find parts that come up easier. But it's really a pain. If you're still here and have any assembly questions, please ask me. This should be dry in like 5 to 10 minutes. I'll put that on, then probably call it a day. Or I could just keep assembling rackets for eternity. Just start moving all these around until I run out of glue at least. Alright, so you can see here's the progress. I started peeling it off, but I'm taking little chunks of sponge. Honestly, probably wasn't worth it for this. I did it for demonstration purposes, but you can learn from it and say maybe you won't try that. And if it's ever close, just glue it with the old glue on. That's my official recommendation. But if it's not close, and your sponge is really ruined with lots of old glue and whatever, and you have no other choice, go for it. The more glue you use, the better, I think. Maybe I didn't use enough. If anything, we got to watch the glue dry on this sheet of rubber the most out of any of them. So that was the title of the stream. So we can thank this rubber for fulfilling its duties. So when the pinching doesn't work, you can start trying the rolling with the fingers and vice versa. Like I said, you just have to be careful because the sponge will start to come up a bit. And I realize I'm kind of whispering and talking away from the phone, so who knows if you're really hearing me. Why did I do this? Well, I did say this process was very tedious, so I was right about that. It's coming off by rolling my finger, but I don't really like the consistency of the sponge underneath. It doesn't seem like it took all the glue out, but we'll see once I get further along. Or maybe the sponge is just really dry also. Like I said, I don't know how old this, or how long this rubber was on that blade, and what glue was used or anything. those two done well, and that one done well as well. So all is well. If there is still one person watching me out there, I appreciate you being there. I hope you learned something about assembling rackets. And if you have any questions, please ask. This is getting closer. It's taking a long time to dry there. I wonder why. And every once in a while you can try to use that kind of, since it's been rolled up into a bigger part, you can try to use that to pull up further. And then sometimes it'll cooperate, like, okay, it's cooperating a little bit. So basically, ideally, you try to get a bunch of it together where it starts pulling up together, and then it starts to move, right? So there, it's going a bit. I would bring it closer to the camera, but it's been so, well, I will in a second. Let me get some up. But this is the type of progress you're looking for. So if you're out there, see, now I'm pulling it up little by little like this. Whereas in the very beginning, there wouldn't have been enough old glue to do it, but little by little, you start bringing it up, and then, well, to start, I had a good amount of divots in the sponge, but if you do it well, you'll just have a little bit, and then when you put the glue, it's not as big a deal. Glue fills it in. So that's that process. This has like 3 more minutes on it, maybe 5 minutes. That, I'm talking about that drawing, not this. This will take me a while. But it's coming up. That's why you got to stick with it. Like table tennis, right? You gotta stick with it, keep practicing, because it takes a long time to get good. I know I get frustrated with it. I don't know if you guys who are watching, how you feel about it. If you always have fun playing, or if sometimes you get a little frustrated because you're not getting better quicker. Or playing better. Or whatever. See, it's coming up. So that's what it's supposed to be. And the more glue you use, the easier it is. But it just depends. You see the number 3. 3 people watching. So even your silence, I appreciate. On a scale of 1 to 10, do you think this will turn out good or bad? I'm giving it a 6. But that's progress. So I was using this to get it started, but you have to be careful. Like I say, you do that and you'll take chunks out of the sponge. So you can do it on the edges just a little bit to get started and to get the glue kind of bunched up in like a line. I'll show you. You gotta have a lot of patience for this one. Right, that's just about ready. So I'll show you this. I'll put that on. No, I guess I'll just keep messing with this because I started it. Alright, so you can see that's how much it's gone back. I keep pulling it. Eventually I'll start peeling it again. You kind of, like, this is kind of your best strategy. You try to keep it together and you go slow so you don't pull out chunks of sponge. Okay, anyway, you can see it kind of works, but it's not foolproof. Alright. Oh, well, yeah, gotta let that go a bit. I forgot to cut this, but forgive me because I've been assembling for a few hours now. So you get a few cuts until the handle of your scissors gets around the handle of the blade. Try not to touch the blade face too much because there's glue on there. Sorry, I guess it was kind of far away from the camera. Not as useful. So this is the short pips rubber I put on here. look at it more in a second, then I'll put this one. So this one's gonna fit, not 100%, but good enough. I'm gonna put it, I'll scoot it up just a bit like I talked about. Well, we'll see. Try to get it where the width of the base touches the side. So however far I can push it up while it's still touching the sides there. We should always have that ready instead of having to look for it. So I moved it up a little more than I had to, but that's alright. Whatever. So you see, I could have kept it down. That's my fault. Anyway, feels pretty good. We'll cut that top in a second. You see, I kind of misjudged a little bit. I tried to move it up because I wasn't sure. I just didn't do a good job of knowing the dimensions on this one, but this racket's mine, so I don't have to feel bad about it. And this one's just for fun, so it's got the short clips on one side, and it's got the GoldArc 8 on the other. And the GoldArc's already used, so I won't use it forever. So we'll do that. Alright, so here's this one. It's got the short pips on the forehand. That was a new sheet. It's got the DHS GoldArc 8 on the back, and that was from a different blade. Okay, it's got a little gap there and there, but it's not a big deal. It's got some weight to it. It's not super light, but you feel it. It feels a little head heavy, but it's nice and solid. It should be fun, because I got a big sponge on this side and that side. It's definitely an aggressive setup, set and ply. Alright, so let me rearrange these blades just a bit, just to have them all set up, and then I'll keep messing with this, I guess. Just rearranging things. If anyone has questions about these specific rackets I just put together, please let me know. I'm going to try to do a little more on this one rubber that I was messing with when I stopped streaming. So if you have any questions, now's the time. I hope you learned something about assembly. I know I made a mess making this. Let's see. So there was a butterfly one. Alright. That's good. Let's see. This one. Let's see. Let's see if this side tape's still sticky, because it is still sticky. Well, first I'll show again. Dignix 80 on the Timo Boll ALC. See if we can put the side tape back on. That would be good. Oh, wasn't on camera. Okay. There's that with the side tape back on. So that was the same side tape as before, but it's mostly good shape, so that's good. I got the side tape for this one. Same thing there, that's the previous tape. Alright. Those look good. This one, I've got tape on that, but I think I'm going to put a different tape that covers it a little more, just so the tape wasn't really covering the whole thing. Oh, let's see. I'll check the Tibhar tape. The Tibhar tape wasn't sticking, and it wasn't quite as thick. So I don't know if it's going to look as good. Let's see. This one's not really sticking. No, it doesn't cover. It doesn't cover well enough. I'll put the other tape on. Just about done. Yeah, I don't think anyone's watching anymore, so I'll cut it off pretty soon. All right. Pull this back over just a bit. All right, there you go. And the Tibhar Samsonov Alpha with Fast Start G1, Xiom Vega. And since no one's watching and I finished all the assembly, I'll get out of here soon. I just wanted to show you. That's the progress so far with this glue project. So that was the old glues on there. I put a bunch on, now I'm pinning it off. This is just bare sponge, but it does seem to have pulled up the sponge a little bit. So just an idea in case you ever really ruin a sponge, you need to try and get the glue off or something. You can use more glue to get it off, but there are risks to it. It's not that easy. I hope you enjoyed the assembly, and I'll be stopping the stream now. Thanks for watching. If you watched it live or if you're watching this later, it's still up, I appreciate it. And I'll see you all later.